Hey everyone. Today I'm going to talk about working with syslog data in general. As you know, syslog data was being used for a very long time in a SIM environment. You can find syslog from anything from Linux devices, Unix devices, servers, from there to networking devices, your firewall, storage, pretty much anything that has anything to do with syslog. So what I'm going to talk about today is something called the severity field, right? So before getting on to the subject, you need to understand what a syslog is and what generates a syslog, and then what the priority is, or what it means as what priority means in the sense of a syslog. Okay, so if you're familiar with how Unix style, Linux style operating system works, a syslog is a log file that is being generated, and then it writes all your system data to a file. You can send that data, you can extract the data from the file, you can send it to SIM. So what actually generates a syslog? So it is generated by a daemon called rsyslog. So it has been, if I'm not mistaken, it has been created in 2004. The daemon have been created in 2004. So basically what a rsyslog means is it's a rocket fast syslog server. So that's what a rsyslog means. So what it does is, that is the daemon that actually generates your syslog, and then it writes it to the file, or you can tell it to send it to a different location, right? So there is something in there called the priority field. So basically what a priority field is, it will actually tell you what the priority of the log is. So I have a simple setup here. I have one Splunk enterprise installed on my test server, and I have a normal server with a universal forwarder installed. Nothing fancy. This is sending data here, and I put a real-time search here, right? So I have logs coming in, right? Most of you have seen when you go on engagements or on your own environment where you are using Splunk. If you are onboarding Linux data, you will get hundreds of millions of lines of logs, right? So how do you actually determine what is important and what is not important, right? So this is a test environment that I run, and I already have like 500 lines of logs, and they are flowing in, right? So the way rsyslog works is, rsyslog has a field called the priority field. So what it does is, so this is what the priority field means. It actually adds a PRI header, and it will actually tell you what the actual message is all about, right? So the priority field consists of two parts. One is the facility and one is the severity, right? So how it works is, there's a calculation that is being done between the facility and the severity to calculate the priority value. So in simple terms, what it means is, so you have 7 levels of severity here, right? So you have your debug, informational, all the way till emergency. So what it means is, if you get a log with an error priority, that means it's not urgent, but it have to be resolved at some point of time. Maybe you will get a a line of log with a critical priority field, right? So what it means is, it is a critical problem. It is going to be affecting your production, and then it have to be fixed. Or maybe you get something called something for emergency, where you have to call up your system guys, and then they should know about it. And then the most common one, the notice. You get tons of messages where it is generally just not errors, but then it's just like a summary, right? That's why most of your logs that you're onboarding will fall under this category, right? So the reason why I actually made this video is because there's something called the alert fatigue, right? So what happens is I'm only onboarding one server, right? That's all I have. I only have one data from one server, and it's already like if I take a count of it, it's already more than maybe 3,000 lines, and the server was just spun up today. The only service running in there is Podman and an Nginx service, right? So if you actually onboard data from hundreds of Linux boxes with hundreds of services running, you would easily have more than 1 million lines of logs, right, in your system. So how do you actually get value out of this? Because if you look at this log, right, so let's just pause this for a second, and let's look at this log. Okay, so this is telling my Podman didn't start, right? But then I don't really know what the status is, or whether it's important or it is not important. I don't really know what it is supposed to mean, or does it actually mean something. Here is a classic example. Systemd is telling about something, services and succeeded, and a random value, a hash value. It doesn't really make sense to you, right? When you're running a SIM, or when you're running a SOC for that matter, you have hundreds of millions of lines in here, and then a specific line like this. It doesn't really give you sense. It doesn't bring sense to the table. It doesn't bring anything to the table, right? So why do you actually onboard it? Yes, you have to onboard it because of compliance, or if you want to do a deep dive, yes. But then when you want to build a dashboard, right, there's two ways of doing it. So let's say I want to monitor Nginx, right? I want to monitor Nginx, and I have, let's for this purpose of this video, let's say I have logs from Nginx here, right? If I want to build a dashboard, I have to pull the logs, I have to say Nginx, and then I have to say error like this Nginx, and then errors, and then I have to search for it, right? I have to search for it, and then if I find a hit, I have to do I have to save that and then set it as an alert, right? But that's actually a crude way of doing this. So how do you know the overall health of your environment? You can't, because if you want to know it, you need to know about all the services that are running on the system, and that you have to get from all this noise that is happening, right? So that's where the priority field actually comes into play. So what the priority field does is it actually adds a priority here into your log line, right? And it will segregate logs into errors, information, notice, alerts, whatever is on this table. It actually splits all the logs, so that all you have to do is, let's say as an admin, all you care about from Linux is where all are errors happening, or what are the critical alerts that are happening. All you have to do is you load the index, you call the index, and you search for errors. You just have to say, okay, I need to search for severity is equal to errors or alert. If I run a search like this, I have to get all the alerts that are being generated on my network. So that's where the problem starts, right? So let's go to this this test box, and I'm going to do a tail, right? Var log syslog. So I'm going to do a tail, and let's quickly break for here. So there's no priority field here, right? You don't see a priority field. So what basically is happening is syslog ng r syslog, that is the daemon that is generating these logs. By default, it doesn't add the priority value here, right? So there's no priority here. So how do you actually enable it? So that is why I'm actually making this video, right? So the way r syslog works is, there is something called the templates, right? So what it means is, if you're into development, you'll be very familiar with it. So a template in a RSS log means you can actually craft your logs so that you can add or remove values from it, right? So let's say you want to add a value, like you want to add your name here. So this is a template, right? You can just type in your name and then that value gets added, right? So by default, the priority text, that is actually your priority value, is not there. It's not present here. So that is why that priority value is not there. Right, so I'm going to show you how to enable it easily, so that going forward you can actually change your log format so that the priority text also gets added to your logs, right? So once the priority is added, you can craft your searches, and then you can extract the severity field, and from severity you will actually cut out a lot of noise, right? So that's what I'm going to show you. So I'm going to put the link to this documentation along with this video, so you can have a look. So what it basically means is, so as I said earlier, syslog is controlled by a daemon called rsyslog. So what we need to do is, if we do a vi / etc rsyslog, and then we say go into rsyslog.d, and then we look for a file, right? For Ubuntu, this should be your default conf file. For CentOS, it should be something else, but then the concept is the same. You look for a file, and then once you open the file, you should find this format here, right? So this is where your syslog is being generated, where your syslog is being written, right? This is a rsyslog file. You are saying auth and auth priv. Everything gets written to auth log. You have star.star, everything, auth priv, right to syslog. So this is what is enabling your rsyslog to write your logs to the syslog log location, right? So how we do this is, we add this line, right? We add this line with the PRI text, and then we create the template first. So all we have to do is, I already have that here. I'm just going to unhash it. I'm going to unhash it, and then I'm going to tell rsyslog to use this template, right? So all I have to do is put a semicolon, and then I call this value from here. So all I did is, I went to rsyslog file, I put in the template with my PRI text. Earlier it was not here, with my PRI text, and then I put it on, I'm calling it from here. So I'm calling this value from here, right? That's it. And now I'm going to save it, and I'm going to restart rsyslog. So that's etc init.d and rsyslog. And a restart. Okay, so now I restarted rsyslog. So now what changed? So let's do a tail again. Tail-f /var/log/syslog. So what changed is, it actually started writing your user value, your PRI value. You see, this field started coming in, right? And now let's check from here. So now let's delete this for now. So now you have the user priority value here, right? So I'm going to quickly stop for a second. right? And then I'm going to see I have severity. I'm pulling severity here, right? So now what is the practical use here? Okay, so on this system I have a broken Nginx. So the Nginx on this box doesn't start, right? So the reason I set it like that is I want to generate an error on your system so that I can actually show you how it works. So before that, let me just show you how much lines of logs I have, right? Around 1448 lines of logs in around 10-20 minutes of running, right? So what I do is I'm going to search index is equal to Linux and then severity is equal to error, right? So I'm just going to search like this. Let me put all time so that you can see what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do I'm going to restart Nginx. So restart Nginx failed, right? And immediately I got an alert on my Splunk saying there's an issue, right? Daemon error. So there's a fail to start a high performance web server. You see? So now what I would do is I'm going to do this, and let's say I'm going to save this as an alert, right? And then my alert everyone on DevOps team, right? And then I can do send an email, right? So how things change is I don't need to write a different search. I don't need to do anything. All I have to do is search for severity is equal to error, and then I can actually pull all the logs. So what else do we have here? So I'm pulling the logs again. So let's pull this to last 15 minutes. So I have one warning, one error, one notice, and 142 info, right? So these are the different types of data that are being generated. So coming back to the thing, right? So what is actually important to me? It's only warnings, right? Info, nobody really needs to know. It is informational, right? Yes, you can do it if you want to do a deep dive, yes. Or if it is for compliance, yes. But then anything about warning, error, critical, alert, and emergency, that's all I need, right? Out of 142 or 144, 145 lines of data that got onboarded, the only thing that is interesting to me is these 3 lines of logs, right? From here, I can see, okay, so what is the warning message that I got? Warning. Nginx service failed with exit code, right? Out of 150 lines of code, that's all I needed to know, right? The other 142 lines of codes are just noise. There's no use there, right? From here, you could actually do something like when you're onboarding your data, right? You can send this to a heavy folder, and you can do a filter there, right? If you're only interested in anything about let's say anything about error, you can do a filter so that all the remaining warnings and notices, informational data, it goes to null queue, right? It goes to null queue by default. You don't even need it. Yes, you would actually need to onboard all the lines of data that is being generated from your environment, provided you are doing a deep dive or you have compliance requirements, right? If you don't need anything and only use case that you're actually onboarding your Linux data is for checking your warnings or your errors, and you have a license requirement and you have a very small license. This is something that you could actually look at, or you could actually do something even more fancier, right? You can, when you're onboarding your data, based on your priority or your severity, you can send it to a different index as well, right? So you can say index is your Linux underscore error, and then all the error messages, only the error messages, it comes to your Linux index, error index, right? So there's a lot of possibilities here. Now, by default, right, on Cisco, I do think severity is being captured. Most of your firewalls do capture severity, but then the only thing that doesn't capture severity by default is your Linux operating system. So there's only one exception where the Linux operating system out of the box do have priority, is when you are sending your data through syslog to a different collector. So let's say, for instance, you are using you have syslog ng, or you have Splunk's SC4S on your environment, and then you're configuring your endpoint, your Linux box, to send data to your syslog ng using rsyslog. In that case, PRI is written by default. Then you don't have to make the changes here. But if you're trying to onboard your data through monitoring your hard drive, like you're monitoring your location, then this PRI value is not present. So in that case, this field have to be enabled manually, but then there is good value there, right? So what is going to happen is you can craft more dashboards much easier. You don't have to hunt around for values here. You don't have to go through lines of logs just to find one error code, and then you craft your error based on that error code. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is, like, you can use your severity field, and then you can craft better dashboards and searches, right? Tell me what you think about the video, and leave a comment if you like, and if you need any if you have any doubts, you can reach out to me, and I'll, as always, help you out. Thank you guys.